At 55, Sofia Coppola has finally said out loud what she spent 35 years showing in silence. She quit acting, and now, for the first time, she is explaining why. But here is the thing. If you think you already know the answer, you probably only know half of it. You know the Godfather Part III. You know the reviews. You know the Razzie Awards and the critics who competed to find the most elegant way to humiliate an 18-year-old in print. What you may not know is what happened in the 12 hours before she ever set foot on that set. What her own family said behind closed doors. What the studio tried to do to stop it. And what Sofia herself said that night, alone, after reading every word they wrote about her. Now, she has a Palme d'Or. She has an Oscar. She has been called one of the most distinctive voices in world cinema. And she is finally ready to connect the dots between who she was in Rome in 1989 and who she became because of it. Sofia Carmina Coppola was born on May 14, 1971, in New York City. Her father was Francis Ford Coppola, not simply a famous director, but the director, the man who had made The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. Her mother was Eleanor Coppola, a filmmaker and artist in her own right. The family operated less like a household than like a traveling civilization. Italy for The Godfather, the Philippines for Apocalypse Now. Everywhere with the children in tow, because Francis did not separate work from family. He believed they were the same thing. Sofia appeared in The Godfather at 3 weeks old, baptized as Michael Corleone's grandson in the film's famous closing sequence. She appeared again in The Godfather Part II as a child on a boat. She was on set in the Philippines during Apocalypse Now at the age of 4, wearing a Sesame Street shirt and apparently drawing pictures that looked, her mother noted, like scenes from the film being made around her. Sofia wasn't the only Coppola to make an appearance in the original films. Francis's sister, Talia Shire, plays Connie Corleone, and his father, Carmine, of prominent Laust, contributed original music to the score. His sons, Roman and Gio, make several cameo appearances, as do his mother and his uncle. The family lost Gio in May 1986. He was 22, killed in a boating accident, and he had been Francis's right hand, associate producer, second unit director, in every way on the road to becoming a filmmaker of his own. His death turned Francis's eye towards Sofia with a new intensity. In 1989, when Woody Allen approached him for the anthology film New York Stories, Francis took it because it gave him a chance to work with his 17-year-old daughter. She designed the costumes, worked on the screenplay, and for the first time sat seriously behind the camera as a creative force. The short they made together, Life Without Zoe, has been dismissed ever since as the weakest of the 3 segments. But watching it now, it reads like a teenager's first draft of everything she would spend 30 years refining. Young female friendship at the center, fashion as language, wealth as prison. The New York Times review compared the protagonist's life to Marie Antoinette. Nobody connected the dots. Sofia's childhood appearances were small and contained. Rumblefish in 1983, where she was genuinely charming as a sassy little sister. Tim Burton's Frankenweenie, where she did what was required. Peggy Sue Got Married in 1986, where she was noticeably stiffer, more self-conscious, less at ease. She had already told her father she did not want to act in Life Without Zoe because she was afraid people would say she was only there because of him. She was 17 and she already understood the problem precisely. Nobody listened. In January 1990, The Godfather Part III had been in production for 7 weeks when everything collapsed in the span of 12 hours. Winona Ryder was 21 and one of the most in-demand actresses in Hollywood. Beetlejuice, Heathers. She had been cast as Mary Corleone, Michael's daughter, the emotional heart of the film's final act. She flew to Rome from the set of Mermaids with Johnny Depp, arriving 1 day before she was due to begin shooting. She was exhausted in the clinical sense. Her body had stopped cooperating. She could not get out of bed. Producer Fred Roos dispatched a doctor. The verdict was not open to negotiation. Severe exhaustion bordering on nervous collapse. She had to go home. Winona and Depp boarded a plane to California, and Roos turned to face what was waiting. The pressure was enormous. Francis had agreed to make The Godfather Part III because he needed the money. This is documented, acknowledged by Francis himself. He owed creditors between $6 and $7 million. His studio had nearly destroyed him financially. By 1992, he would file for bankruptcy protection for the second time in 3 years. Paramount held him to a release schedule tight enough that losing his lead actress 7 weeks into production was a crisis with no clean solution. They considered their options. Julia Roberts had been Francis's first choice, but she was booked solid. Madonna had actively campaigned and tested for Mary. Francis loved her interpretation, but felt she was too old. Mary had to be young, unformed, innocent. Her death only works as tragedy if the audience believes in her inexperience. He had considered Annabella Sciorra, Laura San Giacomo. None of them felt right. The December 1990 release date could not move. Sofia had arrived in Rome on December 28, 1989, to spend winter break from art school with her family. She was 18 years old. She was in the shower when the phone rang. Eleanor Coppola answered. The assistant director was on the line, speaking quickly, with the particular controlled panic of someone on a production that is going sideways in real time. Winona was sick and being sent home. Francis had decided to cast Sofia in her part. Could she come to the studio immediately? They needed her for a costume fitting because a scene was scheduled to shoot in a few hours. Eleanor told Sofia as calmly as she could. She wrote in her diary that tears were welling up in her own eyes as she did it. Sofia's first reaction was excitement. Her second reaction, arriving seconds later as the reality settled in, was anxiety. "I could hear something weird in their voices," Sofia later recalled, "and my mom hung up and said, 'Okay, Sofia, we've got to get you to Cinecittà right away. You're going to be Mary.' I was like, 'Excuse me? Are you sure? I just want to take a shower.'" What happened next unfolded with a speed that left no time for second thoughts. Paramount executives attempted to intervene. They had zero confidence in an untrained 18-year-old and no box office rationale for casting someone the audience had never heard of. The cast was not happy. Talia Shire, returning as Connie Corleone, tried to talk Francis out of it directly. She told him Sofia wasn't ready, that the scrutiny would be merciless, that Sofia would be hurt. Francis rebelled. He had creative control written into his contract, barred Paramount executives from the set, and sent 2 producers back to the United States as punishment for mishandling the writer situation. His lawyers confirmed the terms. Nothing would move him. Why? That question has been asked in various forms for 35 years. The simple answer, the one Francis has offered most often, is that he had always modeled Mary on Sofia. She was the right age, the right physical type, the right cultural texture. "Obviously, part of the kind of daughter I wanted for Michael was my own daughter," he told Vanity Fair. "Because I was thinking, if I were Michael and I had this nice daughter, she'd be sort of like Sofia.
She'd be cute, she'd be beautiful, but she wouldn't be like a movie star beautiful. She'd be Italian, so in her face you could see Sicily. The practical answer is that casting Sofia meant he did not lose a single day of shooting. She was there. She was family. She could be in costume in hours rather than days. There is a third answer that Francis has edged toward in different ways over the years without fully articulating it. Gio's death had never left him. The film was about a father who cannot protect his child. It was about the cost of power and the people who pay it on your behalf. Francis was, in casting Sofia, doing what he had always done, making his personal life and his professional life overlap until they were indistinguishable. He later said, "The bullets that Sofia got were meant for me, just as in the story." He understood at some level what he was doing. He did it anyway.
Andy Garcia, who played Vincent Corleone, was one of the people on set who had actually seen Sofia read the part during pre-production table reads. Winona had been too busy to attend, and Sofia had substituted in for her. Sofia was there and she sat in and read the part, Garcia said. Even back then, so when Sofia was cast, I was like, let's go, I'm all in. But Garcia was the exception. The general atmosphere, as Eleanor documented it in her diary with painful honesty, was that a significant number of people on the production believed Francis had made a terrible mistake. Some told Eleanor directly. One person told her it was a form of child abuse. Francis's sound designer approached him in tears and begged him to let Sofia go. Francis went to Sofia and found her crying. He told her, "If you want to do it, you can do it. Take 10 minutes and give it your best shot." She went down to the set. She came back, and that night she told her father, "F them, I'll show them." The critics did not agree that she had shown them. The reviews for The Godfather Part III arrived in December 1990, and they split cleanly into two groups. Those who found the film overall to be a respectable, if diminished, conclusion to the trilogy, and those who found Sofia's performance to be the central problem with everything. The second group was louder and considerably more entertaining to write. In the Washington Post, she was called hopelessly amateurish. "The camera sees what her father cannot," wrote one critic, "and an untrained young woman, never completely comfortable and extremely awkward in the intimate moments." She won 2 Razzie Awards, Worst Supporting Actress and Worst New Star, beating out, as the ceremony gleefully noted, fellow nominee Donald Trump. Things got personal in ways that were uncomfortable even at the time. Her face was analyzed with a clinical meanness. Her voice, steady, low-key, naturalistic, was described as expressionless, monotone, devoid of the emotional range the role required. One critic called her a homely young woman. Another, in the opposite direction, wrote about her ripe adolescent sexiness in a manner that should have alarmed editors, but apparently did not. She was 18 years old. She was being reviewed as though the failure of a major film were her personal responsibility. What the reviews largely did not say, and what Roger Ebert, one of the few critics who defended her seriously, did say, was that the role of Mary Corleone was itself a problem. The writing of Mary was confused, toggling between archetype and individual without committing to either. She is simultaneously a sheltered child who knows nothing about her family's business and an irresistible figure capable of making a grown man fall in love with his own cousin, who also happens to be the daughter of the most dangerous man in America. The character required a seasoned actress to make those contradictions feel human. Putting an untrained 18-year-old in the position and then blaming the 18-year-old for the character not working was a particular form of convenient criticism. Pauline Kael, the most formidable critic of her generation, was sympathetic in a way that history has mostly forgotten. She wrote that Sofia had a lovely and unusual presence and gave the film a breath of life. Ebert went further. I think Sofia Coppola brings a quality of her own to Mary Corleone, a certain upfront vulnerability and simplicity that I think are appropriate and right for the role. He wrote it, and then he wrote it again in subsequent pieces, because he thought the pile-on had become something uglier than criticism. He was right, but he was outnumbered. Reports began circulating that Sofia had been forced to redub all of her dialogue because of her California accent. The film's dialogue editor denied it. Then it was reported that Frances had re-edited the film to minimize her screen time. The editors denied it. Then came a rumor that Frances had sent letters to critics asking them to revise their reviews after the re-edit. A spokesperson denied the letters existed. A survey of leading critics failed to find a single recipient. None of the denials made the papers as prominently as the original rumors. Sofia had become the story, and the story had a momentum that accuracy could not stop. The years that followed have been called, by Sofia and by Frances, her dilettante era. She studied at the California Institute of the Arts. She designed a clothing line called Milk-Fed, which became genuinely successful in Japan. She appeared in music videos for Sonic Youth and for Madonna, who had tested for the role of Mary, been turned down, and still showed up at a film critics ceremony to loudly boo Rex Reed when he made a joke about Sofia from the podium. They became friends. The connection made sense. Two women who had each been publicly mocked and had each simply continued working. She had a short-lived television show on Comedy Central with Zoe Cassavetes called High Octane. Only 4 episodes. Interviews with Martin Scorsese and Naomi Campbell, conducted with a Gen X irreverence that was simultaneously deeply serious about art. She was figuring out her voice in public without yet having language for what she was moving toward. Then she made a short film. Something clicked. She has described the moment with the economy of someone who has thought about it a great deal. It was not until she pulled the trigger and made something herself that she understood what she actually wanted. The camera on the other side of things. The eye behind the lens rather than in front of it. The Virgin Suicides premiered at Sundance in 1999. Kirsten Dunst, who would become Sofia's most sustained collaboration, has said that working with Sofia at 16 gave her the feeling of being beautiful, not told she was, but seen. Dunst called Sofia just the coolest girl, and still means it. The press coverage of the film's debut could not avoid the obvious framing. Here was the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola, best known for being a bad actress, announcing a directorial sensibility entirely her own. Lost in Translation in 2003 won Sofia the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. She became only the 3rd woman nominated for Best Director and the first American woman to receive that nomination. The film is about loneliness and the intimacy that forms between people who are both very far from home, and it carries in every frame the experience of someone who has spent considerable time as a young woman in rooms full of powerful men who were looking somewhere else. Marie Antoinette in 2006 was booed at Cannes and won the Oscar for Best Costume Design. The Beguiled in 2017 made her only the second woman in the history of Cannes to win Best Director. Priscilla in 2023, the story of Priscilla Presley inside Graceland, inside Elvis's control, inside a marriage that looked like a fairy tale from the outside, was received as one of Sofia's most precise and emotionally complete works. Kaylee Spaney won Best Actress at Venice. In 2025, Sofia presented Mark by Sofia at Venice, her first documentary, a portrait of designer Marc Jacobs, released in the United States through A24 in March 2026. That same month, she told Elle that a period film she had been developing with Kirsten Dunst would not be moving forward. A separate project with Apple TV Plus, adapting Edith Wharton's The Custom of the Country, had also ended. For the first time in years, she said she did not have a next project in mind. She is 55, married to Thomas Mars of the French band Phoenix since 2011, with 2 daughters, Romy and Cosima, who are growing up inside the same tradition of art and work being inseparable, though with considerably more preparation than their mother received. She is taking her time. She has earned that. At Cannes in 2017, accepting the Best Director award, a journalist asked about The Godfather Part III. She said what she had been saying in various forms since the early 2000s. I was less afraid of the critics. She said it with a small smile. The journalist asked how that experience had informed her work. She thought for a moment and said, I know how it feels to be in a situation you didn't choose and to be blamed for it. And I think that makes me careful, as a director, about the positions I put the people I work with into. That is the admission, not dramatic, not a tearful confession on a television sofa. Just a woman at 55 who has had 35 years to understand what happened to her when she was 18, and who has made, out of that understanding, a body of work that is entirely and recognizably her own. She did not quit acting because she wanted to. She quit because the experience of The Godfather Part III showed her, in the most thorough and public way possible, that the camera was not where she was supposed to be. The other side of it was. What do you think of Sofia Coppola's story? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next one.